tường thuật tin tức về văn hóa. This workshop is on journalism, reporting across the cultural divide. And the first cultural divide that I want to overcome is speaking both languages, so I'm going to mix and match. And mấy anh chị ở trên on the panel, feel free to speak in any language, and anyone who wants a translation, please raise your hand. Okay, I'm xin lướt qua cái chương trình. I want to just go over the timeline a little bit. We're gonna have a 15-minute presentation by each one of the speakers, and then we'll follow up with a 45-minute Q&A. Okay, let's get started. Cái người đầu tiên mà Giang muốn giới thiệu đó là anh Andrew Lam. Anh Andrew Lam là nhà văn và cũng là biên tập viên của tờ báo Pacific News Service. Và anh Andrew Lam đã thành lập ra tổ chức New California Media, một tổ chức bao gồm hơn 400 cơ quan truyền thông của nhiều sắc dân. Và cũng có thể là đã nghe tiếng giọng của anh Andrew Lam trên đài phát thanh National Public Radio hoặc báo như là New York Times, LA Times, v.v. Và anh Andrew cũng đã đạt được rất là nhiều giải thưởng trong giới truyền thông như là Asian American Journalist Association Award. Và hôm nay anh Andrew Lam sẽ nói với chúng ta về mối tương quan giữa cộng đồng người Mỹ, gốc Việt và giới truyền thông. Andrew Lam is going to speak to us today on the relationship of Vietnamese American community and the media. Please welcome Andrew Lam.
Thank you very much. Cảm ơn. Hôm nay I'm going to talk about. Actually, I was asked to talk about Vietnamese American journalist role in relationship to the Vietnamese American community, and I really didn't know much about that kind of role because I didn't have one clearly. But I thought I could give some tip on how Vietnamese American community can use the existing American media for its own advantage, and I think that is much more useful than what I can do for the Vietnamese American community. I think the community has gotten very diverse, very different than say 20 years ago. But I think we all have similar points that are at least things that we can agree on, that we can try to promote to the mainstream media. That would be, we don't want to have, we want human rights and democracy for Vietnam, and we want to be somehow better in the American dialogue about race, culture, politics, and certainly foreign policies when it comes to Asia and so on. And to be able to do all that, I think as a community, you got to have a voice and a coherent voice in a way to play to the mainstream media, especially when it's very good timing to do so. A lot of time it seems to me that the Vietnamese media is very good in informing Vietnamese about Vietnam or Vietnamese American communities, but there's very little cross dialogue between the ethnic media and the mainstream one. And so I would say that a lot of mainstream media remains woefully ignorant of what's going on in the Vietnamese American community. And a lot of times it's very necessary for us to somehow matter in that in the outside world beyond the Vietnamese American dialogue. The first suggestion I have is actually using the poll. My office actually spent a bit of money to study on the Vietnamese American voting pattern, and we found that 71% of Vietnamese Americans said that they would vote for Bush, and 23% were going to vote for Kerry. Before that, there were no articles really that was written about Vietnamese in the election. But when the poll came out, there were several newspapers from East Coast as well as West Coast that actually came into Vietnamese community to do story. Why they do this is because the media loves to have a poll. They love to have some really good data so that they can do story on. They cannot just make up a story in general because they're not that imaginative, unfortunately. But when you give a poll to the media, you can almost assure that someone wants to do a story because they can use that as a skeleton to build a story. And so the use of a poll is very important. It's very necessary, especially if you need to convey the complexity of a community to the outside world, to non-Vietnamese communities. And that you can do more on almost anything. The San Jose Mercury News did a survey about 5 years ago when they started this Vietnamese language paper called Viet Merc. And their survey found that of the Vietnamese population in Bay Area, they spend about $1.6 billion a year on consumer goods. And that convinced Knight Ridder to start a Vietnamese language paper because they realized they want some of that cash, they want some of that advertising, and they realized that, wow, this community really matters because they have this dispensable income. So, in fact, if you do a research and you give that, that research a spin, certainly you will find that you're no longer an invisible minority, but most likely you become politicians as well as advertisers and as well as news media in general. So the use of poll can be very, very useful. It's money though. So one thing that I'm advocating is more like I have dream where if I were in Vietnamese, I would spend money on doing a lot of kind of research on Vietnamese American community in a way to add to the narrative of the mainstream press because they really don't have a very clear picture of what Vietnamese American population is. And I think to be included, you got to be proactive. I mean, you got to have the money, basically. Okay, the second idea that I have, and I'm sure it's been done already, but I'm saying this as a big and bold idea, is awards and fellowships. There are awards that sometimes people give to each other in the Vietnamese community, but it rarely gets coverage. Part of that because it's so, I don't know, it's very much within the borders of the local Saigon Vietnamese American community mindset. But in fact, American journalists love to cover this kind of stories, awards, especially if you have someone famous on board, like on the board of the award ceremony, and you can, all of us know somebody, maybe not all of us know, but a movie stars or an athlete. That brings in a lot of credence to, at least for the interest point of view of journalists who want to do some story on Vietnamese communities. And the awards, I think, can also say something about what we as a community are interested in or value in the people that we give awards to. Half of the speakers today could easily be recipients for those awards. Someone who works on refugees, the keynote speaker, Ho Jin, or someone who works with the priest who work with women who were in Taipei, basically sold to Taiwan. All these awards can actually bring attention from the mainstream media if one plays it well. Because the community can actually say, we give award to these people because they bring awareness of, Vietnamese American concerns, to the forefront, and we want to award them and recognize them for doing such. And this can also play very well into the American media. And also not just to give awards to Vietnamese Americans alone, but give awards to someone who does something good for them, that brings something that I mentioned, that we are concerned with, be it human rights in Vietnam or be it something about racism against Vietnamese in America. There's this man who wrote a book, and I just wrote it down because I just heard about it, but his name is Robert McCallery, and he wrote about America's allies abandoned in South Vietnam, basically stories about Vietnamese who were sent to re-education camp. And that kind of writing, we should actually, value and recommend and give award to, because it's actually someone who pays attention to Vietnamese American history. And, we should actually recognize and thank the guy for doing some kind of work that, bring light to certain kind of stories that that American media tend to ignore. And so awards is a way to bring attention to communities concerned beyond the community itself. It's a way to say to the rest of the country that, look, these are the people, these are the luminaries of our communities, and this is why, and you should also know why, because these people are doing things that we value, and this is what concerns us and should concern the rest of the country, society as well. The fellowship thing is, it's a little bit interesting because over the years, I ran into so many Vietnamese Americans who do scholarship work in colleges, and they complain that there is very little scholarship work on South Vietnamese American experience, Vietnamese American experience, both people or re-education camp, a new economic zone. And I say, no, there's plenty actually. You go on Bosa, go to bookstores, you will see a bunch of different things, from Chai Kai Tao to Thuy Nhân and all these experiences. And this graduate student who are Vietnamese American who can speak Vietnamese but don't read in Vietnamese will tell you that they can't access this stuff because it's not translated. And that, in fact, they cannot refer to it when they do their thesis because it's not available to them in a language that's accessible and quotable. And it might seem a little problem to some people, but in fact, over time, it becomes a very big problem because in universities right now, you would have the non-Vietnamese American version of Vietnam War, and then you would have scholarship done by Hanoi University. And so, in fact, what you get is two different versions of the Vietnam War. But the Vietnamese American version of the Vietnam War or post-war experiences are done mostly in Vietnamese and stay within the community. But if you want to do a PhD study on it, you can't quote from the Vietnamese, especially if you're born in the United States. So the fellowship, I would say, if I were rich and have money, say, translate this stuff into English. Make it available to universities so as a way to include yourself into a public dialogue. This is very important over time because first generation will disappear, second generation will forget, and all they will have is text that they can go by when they want to write or do research on Vietnamese American experience. And this has happened before in Vietnam. In Vietnam right now, if you go back to 18th century or before, everything is in Chữ Nôm, which is in Chinese characters, but in fact, Chinese representation of Vietnamese language. And there's only about a dozen people who can still read Chữ Nôm in Vietnam. So there are court documents that go back for hundreds of years that is inaccessible for scholars because they don't know how to read it. It's quite amazing. So I can see it could be a happening thing right in front of us and we don't know it, but they lack accessibility. So the older we go to the education word of existing literature, encourage much scholarship on American, or Vietnamese boat people experience, or re-education camp stories, or all that kind of stuff that is available in abundance but not accessible to half of the population. And the other grants should go, like the Oscar, the other grants go to people who do documentaries, people who do, there's a man across the hall right now talking about trying to fundraise to do a documentary on boat people, and he has a hard time fundraising, and that documentary is probably the most popular form of storytelling right now since Michael Moore made money out of it. It's available, it's much accessible now because people can make this stuff very easily compared to before. And yet here we are, half of us, or more than half of us, come as refugees, and here's a man who wants to write a story, do a story on refugee and boat people, and have a hard time fundraising. So if I were rich, the money, the other grants would go to people who document Vietnamese American experiences, because that, of course, will add to the dialogue about Vietnamese presence in America. So that would be a fantastic thing if that ever happens. Third, I think we have gotten to a level where everybody can write in English, or a lot of us can, and yet we're still a reluctant thing for the opinion editorial pages of newspapers of our local communities. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure part of it is culture, but there is a large resistance to participation on that level of, say, the opinion editorial page, or getting on the commentaries of radios, or being part of, or writing letters to the editors. And a lot of times it feels like it's really necessary to do so, and I kept looking for it in the papers, and Rarely do I see it. Nowadays I see a little bit more, but say 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, an issue that has to do with Vietnamese American, and you turn it on, open the San Jose Mercury News or the San Francisco Chronicle, nothing, no Vietnamese writing in, or very few writing in, and you feel as if it's a passive, at least as an American point of view, a non-Vietnamese American point of view, is that, wow, what a passive community, they don't react. The only time they react is when they protest on the street, you know, but then that protest in a way is not coherent enough for the media to actually make sense of a lot of time. So you got to have a dialogue on the public forum, on the op-ed page, and there's different way of doing it, but I think people should begin to do it because it's only a matter, if you don't, I mean, the secret to America and being inclusive in American history is that you have to claw your way in. Nobody opened the door and invite you, you know. You have to, it's like the frontier, you know, the media is still pretty much the West. You have to claw your way in and make yourself present and known. And that's the only way you will be recognized for and be actually respected for. So, and of course it's important. It's important because there are a lot of misrepresentation about Vietnamese American in the media. The latest thing was the O'Reilly factor, when he basically said Vietnamese didn't fight for themselves and therefore don't deserve, you know, support from the United States. And write letters. I mean, there were some kind of letter writing, but it was disarray kind of reaction. There was no anti-defamation league. There was no institution that can actually call a press conference and say this is completely wrong, historically illogical, and that it's insulting for the Vietnamese community, you know, who have contributed to this country, who fought in the war, and so on and so on. There was nothing on that level that, you know, on media and say, listen, you know, we'll call you right away on this thing. The reaction was tepid and then disappeared. And then I just thought, you know, these people were just insulting our community, and the reaction was like, well, yeah, gosh, you know. And I don't think that's right. I think, you know, I don't care about your political leaning, but when you're insulted or misrepresented in the media, you should react right away. You know, if you're my hand, you know. So anyway, that's as far as I will go, but the dialogue is important, not just between us, but with the outer communities and other communities, because if they don't understand us, they will misunderstand us, and that can be very dangerous. Thanks.
Thank you, anh Andrew. Thanh Nhân chỉ muốn nói tóm tắt lại rất là ngắn gọn cho những người mà không có hiểu tiếng Anh đó, thì anh Andrew đã nói về cái nhu cầu mà cộng đồng người Việt chúng ta cần phải có một cái tiếng nói, mà cái tiếng nói nó phải làm sao cho người dân bản xứ hiểu được, thì cái đó là cái điều quan trọng. Anh ta đưa ra 4 điều. Thì cái điều thứ nhất là thiếu cái sự trao đổi giữa những người, ví dụ như là người Việt với lại những người bản, họ rất là thích thú về những cái thống kê, tại vì những cái thống kê họ có thể viết thành những cái câu chuyện, và những cái câu chuyện đó có thể nói lên cái hoàn cảnh tình trạng của người Việt hiện bây giờ. Ví dụ như là có một cái thống kê về cái đồng tiền của người Việt tị nạn nó mua được bao nhiêu, thì cái đó đã một cái story, và cái story đó đã nói là cộng đồng người Việt chúng ta là một cái cộng đồng mà đáng chú ý đến trong cái lĩnh vực về advertising vân vân. Cái đề nghị thứ nhì của anh Andrew là chúng ta nên có những cái awards, những cái giải thưởng để mà trao cái giải thưởng đó nó sẽ đem cái sự chú ý của media đến với lại những cái vấn đề của Việt Nam. Ví dụ như là chúng ta có thể có những cái giải thưởng cho những người mà tham dịch những cái tài liệu Việt Nam về những cái kinh nghiệm của người Việt Nam, tại vì hiện tại trong những cái library vân vân chúng ta thấy là chúng ta thiếu những cái sources của người mà bằng tiếng Anh để mà những người làm những cái doctorates có thể dùng để mà cite được những cái sources đó. Cái điều thứ ba là anh ta nói về cái vấn đề mà rất là dễ dàng là chúng ta viết về những cái ý kiến của mình cho những cái tờ báo, cho những cái radio, tại vì theo như là cái topic của anh Andrew về cái chúng ta, tức là cái vấn đề mà chúng ta cần có cái voice mà nó coherent, chúng ta nhiều khi chỉ có biểu lộ cái tình cảm của chúng ta hay là cái suy nghĩ của chúng ta bằng cách là đi biểu tình. Cái sự biểu tình đó nó không có nói lên được cái câu chuyện mà chúng ta muốn nói, cho nên chúng ta cần phải viết những cái câu chuyện trong những cái editorial vân vân. Người bản xứ họ có thể mới hiểu được nguyên văn cái câu chuyện và có thể tôn trọng cái cộng đồng chúng ta nhiều hơn. Và cái đó cũng đưa đến cái việc cuối cùng là chúng ta cũng có những cái hội đoàn hay là những cái cơ chế mà phải dùng lý luận. Ví dụ như trong cái vấn đề mà vừa đây xảy ra là ông O'Reilly đã nói là người Việt chúng ta không có tự do tại vì chúng ta không chịu tranh đấu cho tự do, và ông Bush đã trả lời là yes. Thì không có ai mà đứng lên để mà phản đối bằng lý luận cho người Mỹ họ hiểu được là tại sao chúng ta không có tự do, không phải là vì chúng ta không tranh đấu. Thì cái đó là 4 cái đề nghị của anh Andrew. Thank you very much, Andrew. Ok, cái người kế tiếp mà Thanh Giang muốn giới thiệu là chị Đỗ Bảo Anh. Chị Đỗ Bảo Anh viết cho chuyện Người Á Châu cho tờ báo Orange County Register, một tờ báo tại Nam Cali đây. Và đồng thời chị Bảo Anh cũng là phó giám đốc thương mại cho tờ báo Nhật báo Người Việt. Và Nhật báo Người Việt thì quý vị cũng biết là một trong những tờ báo lớn nhất của Hoa Kỳ đây. Đồng thời Nhật báo Người Việt cũng đã ra một cái bản Anh ngữ, đó là Người Việt 2, và chị Bảo Anh cũng là thành phần trong ban biên tập của Người Việt 2. Và ngoài ra thì chị Bảo Anh còn host những cái radio show chung với lại cái sự bảo trợ của Orange County Register. Và hôm nay chị Bảo Anh sẽ nói với chúng ta về cái đề tài là văn hóa và khung cảnh trong tường trình. Welcome chị Bảo Anh.
Bảo Anh xin cảm ơn các bạn và quý vị, và rất là cảm ơn Võ thì giờ đến ngày hôm nay, và hy vọng là khi mà chúng tôi nói chuyện không ai sẽ chán và bỏ đi. So thanks for being here, because I think it's really important to exchange all of our views. I am always working in some context or other, and khi mà đến cái buổi hội thảo hôm nay thì Bảo Anh cố gắng là viết bài về cái buổi này. So I was going around and to interview people, and we're all seemingly pretty young here, but even the young people do not want to be interviewed. Có một số người Bảo Anh đến để xin hỏi câu hỏi mà họ nói là tôi không muốn dùng tên của tôi, xin chị đừng có hỏi tôi thêm. You know, the young people are reluctant to use their names, are reluctant to be quoted, and so that is an example of the kind of problems we face when you're reporting across the bicultural divide. I constantly run into people who do not want to have anything to do with the media. True story, yesterday I got assigned an assignment by my editors at the Register viết về mấy cái nhà hàng mà bán heo quay với vịt quay. So, in all stories that we do, we try to take a photo to illustrate the people, their business, their passion, whatever it may be. And I called up several different restaurants and said, you know, we're interested in writing about you. Can we come by and interview you and maybe set up for a photo assignment? Cái người mà trả lời một cái nhà hàng này mà vẫn không có nói tên ra được. So now I'm not releasing the names. They said, tôi không có làm việc ở đây. Thật ra là tôi chỉ là một người mà bước vào tiệm để mua 1 pound gà quay, cho nên xin cô gọi lại sau khi mở cửa nhà hàng. And I said, well, if it's not open, why are you answering the phone? And they said, well, I just happened to stop by. I'm helping the owner out. I said, well, who is the owner? Is he there? They said, no, he never comes here. And then I said, well, maybe you can just pass me on to the manager, somebody who's actually chopping the chicken. They said, oh no, they don't come in until way in the afternoon. You know, it's these kinds of things. And then so after another 5 minutes, she hung up the phone. And I called back, and she picked it up and slammed it down, and that happened 4 times. And then I waited an hour. And finally she answered the phone again. It was the same person. I said, ủa, sao cô nói với tôi là cô không có làm việc ở đây? You know, what are you doing there still? And so it's a constant chase. You want to write about your community, but because our community did not grow up in a free press, people are reluctant. People think that they need to pay for stories, or people think that they can buy our work. In fact, I think journalism is just an overriding passion. There's nothing that I look at in daily life that I don't link automatically to the media. I mean, you wake up and you read 5 newspapers online or hard copy, and then you go to work, and then you might read other newspapers in other languages. I think this is partly what drives us. But in order, let me mention the last line of what Andrew was saying, which I thought was so heart to heart, which is, because they don't understand us, they misunderstand us. But in addition to that, because we don't understand them, whoever they might be, and it's not just Vietnamese, it's everybody else that's outside the Vietnamese community, we can also misunderstand them, which is one of the reasons why I got into journalism, is to be able to connect the cultures, connect the different generations, but also to connect our consuming passions. I think cultural identity is something that you carry, but you not only carry it, you wear it. And there are advantages and disadvantages. When you are a person covering a Vietnamese story, or even more, empathize. And so you can only present the positive point of view. But what do you bring to the story from your background? You bring an understanding of the history, you bring an understanding of the community, and the politics which override everything that we do. What can you do then in that role that would hurt your community or would help it? That's really hard, and I think Sadao after me will give you the perfect example of something illustrating that. We are constantly pressured to go one way or the other, whether you're reporting on a holiday, Tết Trung Thu, whether you're reporting on biography by somebody who một người tù nhân chính trị mới ra, or whether you're reporting on a new Vietnamese singer. People expect you to only show things that promote or boost the culture. Một cái câu mà bọn anh hay nghe đó là chị là người Việt Nam, tôi là người Việt Nam, so mình có thể hiểu nhau với lại giúp nhau. When actually our editors would, put us on the spot if we were to say something publicly that yes, I support that political cause, or yes, I will in my spare time fundraise for your social services group. We are under a lot of incredible pressure not to join anything. We make a report on a human rights issue and we empathize with our own people, but we could never ever carry the flag or speak up for those kinds of issues. And I think that the average person on the street in our community does not always understand that. And I think some of you would know what I mean. There's lots of misconceptions about the field of journalism. People believe that there's no respect to have in such a field, there's no money. That part might be true, except maybe for somebody like Andrew, or maybe some of these rising young Vietnamese stars you see in television. And I think they deserve the high pay they get. But when I started out in journalism, there was in my college a Vietnamese background who majored in journalism. In fact, everybody thought, I've never even met a Vietnamese journalist before. And when I started at the paper, which reports on the capital of the Vietnamese community overseas, which is the Orange County Register, I was the very first Vietnamese reporter there. And today, there are actually 5 of us, and from all over the U.S., not just happening to have grown up in Orange County. And more, a lot of our young journalists are going towards the broadcast media, which I think is fabulous, because despite the fact that Andrew and I are mostly in the print background, we all know that television is more glamorous. It attracts people right away, and so in order to get our message across, we should increasingly go on the air or online. I think with that, I'm going to segue into our next presenter so that we can see some of the serious issues going on that illustrate to you the difference between viewpoints and the difference between generations in our community. And for listening.
Thưa chị Bảo Anh, Thanh Giang cũng xin tóm lược cái phần của chị Bảo Anh. Chị Bảo Anh nói đến những cái khó khăn làm người báo chí. Thì một trong những cái khó khăn đó là khi mà đi phỏng vấn, ngay cả những người trẻ mà lớn lên tại Mỹ cũng không chịu trả lời những cái câu phỏng vấn đó, và họ không muốn có cái liên quan gì đến với giới truyền thông hết. Nhưng mà cô ta nói là cô vẫn thích cái nghề truyền thông, nghề báo chí, và cái nghề báo chí làm truyền thông là một cái đam mê mà hệ đến mọi mặt trong cuộc sống. Thì một trong những cái vấn đề nữa là chúng ta cũng cần, không những là người bản xứ cần phải hiểu về cộng đồng của chúng ta, nhưng mà chúng ta cũng phải hiểu đến những cái cộng đồng của người bản xứ, và cái ngành truyền thông là cái liên kết cộng đồng. Truyền thông, người báo chí đó chỉ nên nói những điều tốt về cộng đồng người Việt chúng ta thôi. I think that's a really good point. Nhất là trong cái mùa bầu cử này, cái đó là vấn đề rất là đúng. Ngoài ra, nhiều người hiểu lầm về cái ngành truyền thông là trong ngành truyền thông là chúng ta sẽ không được respect và không có nhiều tiền. Thì không biết là cái đó là có phải là hiểu lầm hay không. Cái đó là xin tóm tắt cái bài của chị Bảo Anh. Và cái người cuối cùng Thanh Giang muốn giới thiệu đó là anh Đào Sa. Anh Đào Sa là một người thương gia trẻ 24 tuổi thôi mà rất là thành công, và đặc biệt là anh muốn khuyến khích đến những cơ sở bất vụ lợi. Anh Sa đã tốt nghiệp hạng danh dự từ trường Cal State University Long Beach, và anh đã làm một công ty từ lúc hồi 18 tuổi thôi. Cái công ty là smartmula.com, và sau khi mà bán lại cái công ty đó thì anh đã được bổ nhiệm làm giám đốc phát triển thương mại cho tổ chức Autos Group, và cái tổ chức này cũng nhắm vào những cái tổ chức mà làm những cái công việc bất vụ lợi. Hiện nay anh là Associate Executive của chương trình VPS, một chương trình rất là mới mà với cái chương trình đó anh muốn tạo những cái thay đổi lớn trong sự phát triển và tăng trưởng của thanh niên Mỹ gốc Việt. Tuy nhiên cái chương trình VPS đó đã gặp những khó khăn mà anh Sa sẽ nói đến trong cái bài thuyết trình ngày hôm nay, và cái đề tài của anh Sa Đào là những bức tường ngăn đôi người Mỹ gốc Việt và truyền thông dòng chính. Please give a welcome to Sa Đào.
Before I start, I just want to take a moment and thank Andrew and Tian. Though you guys are very young, you guys have been pioneers in your field and have really opened the doors for all of us for what we're trying to do, and given us the motivation and paved for us the road to do what we're trying to do. And I just wanted to take a moment and thank you guys.
Actually, Andrew's older than me.
Both of them have spoken a lot today about some of the difficulties, of course, of representing Asian Americans, particularly Vietnamese Americans, to the mainstream media. As Andrew said earlier, and Ms. Ando said earlier, that there's the issue with the older generation of understanding what freedom of speech is all about, and because that's not fully understood, the proactiveness, if you will, hasn't been there to really showcase who we are, showcase our issues. And because of that, we personally believe that the younger generation has also been affected by that. Before I get started, I just want everybody to go ahead and just take a look around the room real quick. Go ahead, take a look around the room. I've got a few technical things set up, so if you want to say hi to somebody you haven't met today yet and just find out what they're all about, just do that. I need a minute to set up here. Thank you. Okay. Well, actually, take PowerPoint first. Okay.
You can go around, stretch your legs, but don't leave the room.
focus.
Try the ring around.
Oh yeah. Can you guys see that? Awesome. I'm going to be sitting up here, so I'm going to control the PowerPoint. But for the most part, everything can be up on here. As it was said earlier, I am the Associate Executive Producer of the VAX TV show. VAX stands for Vietnamese American Exposure. And real briefly, what our TV show is just a television program out to expose through television who we Vietnamese Americans are. I think it was very quite significant when it was mentioned earlier that it's also very important for us to have a voice on television and in the media where people can see our faces, hear what we're saying, and things like that, because television is definitely a medium that reaches people a lot faster. When people see something, it validates what's being said. And today I'm going to talk about kind of breaking those walls, breaking the barriers of being able to be really showcased in the mainstream. The first thing I'm going to do is actually just kind of play a little game with you guys and see how well you feel that the Vietnamese Americans are represented in the mainstream. So I'm going to have a couple pictures that I'm going to put up on screen. And these are people, Vietnamese Americans, that you should know who they are. And these people have been somewhat prominently displayed on television and in the media because of their accomplishments or what they've done. The first person we're going to go through, and if you know who it is, go ahead and shout out. Back staff, you can't say anything, sorry. Oh, actually, let me just go over real briefly what I'm going to talk about today first. We know we're talking about Vietnamese Americans heading into the mainstream. And some of the key issues regarding that, obviously, are the people. You can't get to the mainstream unless there's really people to talk about, issues to talk about, things to expose. The next thing is the market. Is the public ready for this? Are they willing to accept, as Andrew said earlier, is there money for this? I mean, doing this is going to cost a lot of money, and it requires us to convince corporations, small businesses, that now is the time, and our community is the right place to start doing this. And of course, the media, us, where we have the power more than anybody else, more than entertainers, more than Hollywood directors, to really represent who we as a community are. So we're going to go ahead with our first picture. Of course, there you go. Anybody? Dustin Nguyen, yes. He, you remember back him back in 21 Jump Street, the first Vietnamese Americans to be featured on mainstream TV, then on to do some movies, as well as co-star next to Pamela Anderson. Quite interesting with Dustin is his roles have never been that of, well, his roles have been very mainstream, meaning he doesn't speak with an accent. A lot of his roles aren't typecasting Americans into the mainstream. Oh yes. The first, not only the first Asian American, first Vietnamese American professional football player in the NFL, is making absolutely major strides in showing that Asian Americans are big, brute, strong, and not all, not all small weak. And this young lady? This one's a little tough because she's in and out. But her name's Maggie Q, and she's done a lot of modeling. She's been featured in quite a few magazines, and she does a lot of movies. She's done some mainstream movies, but her roles have been small. But she's starred in a lot of major B movies that have been showcased overseas, primarily in Hong Kong and Japan. She's part of a major campaign in the United States to encourage Asian Americans, especially people in the age bracket 18 to 30, to go out and vote and be a lot more proactive in media. And our last person, oh yes, Steph Van, winner of NBC's Last Comic Standing. And so those are just a few of the people that, you know, obviously the community outside of the Vietnamese American community might be able to learn a little bit about us, know who we are. Of course, we don't expect, you know, mainstream media to understand, you know, stars like that do in-language programming, stuff like Paris by Night, stuff like that, because that really doesn't reach out outside of the Vietnamese community. And it's important that people that do both in the medical field as well as in, you know, politics and whatnot, that they are showcased. What I want to do next is show you a little video clip. What our staff did was we went out to Hollywood and we interviewed a lot of people, asking them, when we say the word Vietnamese, what do they think? And I think you'll find it very interesting to see what their answer is. Crossing my fingers. Oh yes, there we go.
Over to Vietnam.
Thanks for coming back, and to show you our appreciation,
Hang on, we're going to find the menu. Do you know how to get to the root menu? Okay.
we're going to take you out of the town and hang out at Century Club.
Apparently, there are some technical difficulties, but...
Vietnamese, I think of food.
Good food. Soup.
I think of the war. The war. Tan guys in green army suits.
Honestly, refugees.
The war.
Jenny that does my nails.
What's this show for? Well, what channel are you on? Vietnamese.
You're the second person that said that today.
I can see where this is going. I can see that, this is probably to demonstrate that the white or Caucasian community has no idea what Vietnamese people are about. And I agree with that. I agree that we don't know a heck of a lot about you guys. You should teach us. I think this is a really good, demonstration of what you're doing right now. But just be aware of the fact that we're not the only ones who are sort of closed-minded in a sense. And it's not that we try to be. It's just that it's the way life is. I mean, I'm only 18. I don't know the whole world yet. I don't know what every single culture on this planet.
Word.
You must think I'm an ignorant American now.
No, we just been asking a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know, and that's why we want to promote a show that will educate people and have more exposure to talents and foods and stuff. So that's our core purpose. Can you think of any Vietnamese American stereotypes? I don't know, like Asian American stereotypes out there?
Yeah, there's a few, like the people with the buck teeth, and that's pretty cool.
You know what? You guys like to karaoke a lot, right?
Rude.
Yeah, you said you have Vietnamese background, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Actually, yeah, I have one, and they're also pretty good at math, actually.
Yeah, pretty good at that.
Any celebrities? Analyst.
You know anything about the Vietnamese culture?
I've studied a little bit about it, because I want to visit there one day. Actually, I don't, because I don't have any friends that Vietnamese. They're really good people. They really like to be, together with the family. You know what I mean?
The food's good.
Good.
And the Vietnamese sandwiches are good.
Hey, you know a lot about the Vietnamese American culture? No. How about you?
Oh, not really, no.
Very little. I had a friend that the salon that I had gone to was a Vietnamese manicurist.
How about you? I know what they wear. What do they wear? They wear those traditional little thingamajiggers.
Any of you have Vietnamese friends?
No.
No? Yeah?
No.
Okay, I'm joking. I'm Vietnamese. You have one, Alright, thanks a lot, guys.
All Vietnamese.
That's Hollywood for you.
So as you can see, there is a major void in terms of people understanding who we really are, and unfortunately, it's really up to us to have to do it. If we wait for Hollywood to do it for us, if we wait for film directors, if we wait for somebody to write an interesting Vietnamese role into a movie script, it's not going to happen anytime soon. And so it's up to us to really do it, and we have the power to. I mean, the media it's in our hands. We write about it, we talk about it, we show the world who we really are. Now, a question that was asked earlier was, do we have enough money to do this? And of course, the only way we have money is to get funding, right? And to have people come in and either finance it because they believe it's going to be profitable, or to have sponsors come in because they feel that this medium is a great way to reach a public, a community, that's going to definitely spend their dollars to them. So one of the most important things that I had to do at VAX was trying to not only convince my staff, my team, but all the people who network with them, there's a market for what we're trying to do. Vietnamese Americans are the third largest among Asian American populations in the United States. And today Vietnamese Americans have the highest growth rate among all Asian American ethnicities. Despite the fact that our numbers right now, 1.2 million, very small, and a lot of corporations would not really look at, the positive is our growth. We're growing at a tremendous rate, and we're only going to get bigger. Which is great because the fact that Asian Americans have the highest average of any ethnic group, they have the highest rate of employment, highest percentage with a bachelor's degree or above, highest rate of business ownership, and most importantly, they're the strongest in terms of buying power. We have a $296 billion buying power. And so, things like that are what corporations look for. And the question then comes is, well, how do they communicate to our community, and exactly how do they measure and correlate their efforts with what we're trying to do? And my answer to that is really the new consumer voice, the consumer-friendly group, the more educated, are, of course, the younger people. The second generation, the people anywhere between 18 to 35 who are college educated, more Americanized, and obviously speak English, are very comfortable with English. Some of them, or actually a majority of them, prefer reading and listening to the English language. And so it becomes an easy avenue for advertisers to communicate to this particular demographic that they're trying to reach, to be able to sell their product. By convincing that group, first of all, that our market is a very attractive market for them to be a part of, definitely funding what we do, of course, because money is required to do all. And unless we do that, we're not going to be able to accomplish what we're going to try to do, especially for a program like VAX, which is attempting to be a weekly episode on television. It's very expensive. We travel all over the United States, and so a lot of money needs to be put in for the show to exist. And if that money is just being delivered by, somebody who just wants to fund it, it's not really proving to ourselves that the mainstream media, mainstream corporations are ready for what we're trying to do. Which then leads me to, obviously, us and what we've done to do that. Obviously, if you walk around Little Saigon, you'll see about a zillion publications, in-language publications that exist. And tremendous amount of media attention, but focused primarily within the community. And to talk about issues that we want other people to read, we can't provide that stuff in language. It's like preaching to the choir. So either writing in our local community paper like the Orange County Register, or going on a radio show, the San Francisco Chronicle, things like that. As Andrew said earlier, writing in the editorial section, creating a voice for yourself, that's definitely one way to do it. But what other people are doing, which is really great, is really making that voice for the second generation and creating an avenue where that medium can be transferred around so that people can enjoy it. In particular, these are some of the recent ones. One of the pioneers, way back in 1996, Miss Christine Pham, who I've had the speaking with, she created a magazine called Vietnamese, and that magazine was first of its kind when it came out. It was distributed all over the nation. You can find it at your Barnes & Nobles or any bookstore, and it covered just about any issue that pertained to the Vietnamese community, not just specifically to the younger generation, but to all, old and young alike. And the magazine was in English, but it was only out for, I believe, up to 9 or 10 issues. And of course, a lot of people felt the magazine itself was a little bit before time. As you see, there are other publications here. As we heard earlier, Movie 2 has this complete English section, and it talks about a lot of issues that pertain to the Vietnamese community with respect to the younger adults. Viet Weekly now has a section dedicated in English, and Nha Magazine, which has been out for some time now, based out up north, has made great strides in being able to penetrate not only the Vietnamese market but the mainstream market. And if you pick up one of those, you'll see that a good 75% of the content within the magazine is in English. And I think it's great that these people are making these strides to reach out to the younger market, to be able to communicate with them. Because the last thing we want to do is for the younger generation to completely not have anything catered to them and just, lose touch with their culture, lose touch with, who they are and being proactive for the community. And then, of course, there is the VAX TV show, which we're presently trying to do, but not without objection, not without obstacles. One of the things that we're going to have to realize is that as we create a voice for ourselves, there's going to be people that object to that, and those people will be people within our community that aren't used to us having a voice, speaking about issues that might not necessarily be the most comfortable thing for them to talk about. For example, the VAX TV show, which launched the first weekend of October, it aired for 2 episodes before it got pulled off the air. And it got pulled off the air because we aired a segment about a documentary that was being made. It's already been made. It's made by 2 filmmakers, non-Vietnamese filmmakers, that documented the 1999 protests in Little Saigon, where the picture of Ho Chi Minh was in that video store. I'm sure you guys all remember that. And we spent about 4 minutes talking to the filmmakers about their movie, and that was broadcasted on our episode. It was aired on Saigon TV on Saturday, October 9th, and shortly thereafter, there was a large community of protesters that did not agree with what we were trying to do, was very offended by what we were trying to do, and demanded that our show be pulled off the air, and subsequently that's what happened. And since then, our show has not been back on the air. From our standpoint, it's important that we understand what these protesters are protesting about. And that's the first thing, that we understand that because of what we did, it caused a lot of anxiety, caused a lot of emotions. The things that they went through are things that we as a younger generation might not truly understand. I wasn't there to see what, a family member gets shot or things like that, the atrocities of things like that. But at the same time, we feel that it's our job to not hide from those things, but to educate the community, not only our community, but people outside our community about what we went through, why we're here. I think in 1999, when we were protesting out there, I think that was the first time, NBC, CNN, everybody came out and really put Little Saigon out on the map and really showcased how powerful the Vietnamese voice is, how powerful we are when we collaborate together as a community to, to speak our opinion and to do something about it. There was a discussion earlier about, President Bush saying this and nobody coming out and really protesting that. And I think in 1999, it was interesting to see that the Vietnamese American community did come out, did speak their voice, and and you guys saw what happened. We were just everywhere, and that's when people really started to ask themselves, well, what's there to know about the Vietnamese community? What are they like? Who are these people? And I think if we continue to do things like that, it'll be very important. VAX right now is hoping to have an opportunity to speak to these group of protesters to better understand what's going on. We don't want to protest back. That's not the point. I think us as a younger generation, by doing what we're doing, shouldn't be to be rebellious against the older folks, but more so to be as understanding as possible and to take that opportunity to try to bridge that gap. To show them what we're trying to do, and that we really want to not only educate our community, but the people outside of our community about who we are. And that truly is the purpose, I think, of everybody in this room and what they're trying to hope to do. If you look around, this is the group of people that fit within the educated, consumer-friendly, Americanized group. At the same time, we're also the very people in this room that can go out there and make that difference. We can go out there and be that voice. It's tough for a lot of people to do that. They're not used to seeing Vietnamese Americans on television, not used to seeing faces of people doing this and that. And by us going out there and doing so, can we achieve, giving ourselves a stronger presence in mainstream media.
Để tóm được cái phần trình bày của anh Sa thì anh cũng đã nói đến những cái khó khăn của giới truyền thông, và một trong cái câu hỏi mà đặt lúc đầu là cái thế hệ đi trước của chúng ta, của người Việt, có hiểu, không biết là có hiểu được cái tự do ngôn luận như thế nào chưa tại nước Mỹ này. Thì Anh ta đã chiếu cái phần show và chắc là không phải cần phải dịch cái đó, nhưng mà đại khái là anh Sa nói về cái cộng đồng người Việt cũng như là người Á Châu nói chung là một trong những cái cộng đồng mà phát triển mạnh nhất, và riêng anh Sa đã chú trọng vào cái cộng đồng người Việt và đặc biệt là cái người Việt mà những người trẻ, vì chúng ta có cái buying power đó. Và để mà làm cái chương trình VAX thì anh ta đã gây quỹ được rất là nhiều để mà tạo ra cái chương trình VAX để mà có được một cái tiếng nói của cái thế hệ thứ nhì, như là các cơ quan truyền thông khác đã làm, như là Người Việt 2, nhà magazine Bicultural vân vân. Và khi mà làm ra cái chương trình VAX thì anh đã gặp những cái thử thách và ngay cả những cái phản đối, những cái biểu tình. Sau khi mà cái chương trình thứ nhì đã được lên sóng thì có những người đã biểu tình, tại vì trong cái segment đó có chiếu về cái có muốn đưa cái vấn đề của người Việt ra để cho người cộng đồng bản xứ hiểu được về chúng mình. Và cái đó là cái final message của anh Sa là làm sao để cho người bản xứ có thể tìm hiểu được cộng đồng của mình, và mọi người chúng ta phải có cái trách nhiệm để mà đi ra giáo dục người bản xứ về cộng đồng của chúng ta. Rất là rồi. Cảm ơn anh Sa. Thì bây giờ chúng ta sẽ mở, we're gonna open it up for questions for any of the speakers, Andrew or chị Bảo Anh or Sa Đào. Anybody have any questions? Just go, Kim Anh, please.
Oh,
tôi có câu hỏi đặt cho anh Andrew Lâm. You said that Mr. Bill O'Reilly insulted the Vietnamese community and nobody said anything. Isn't it the role of the media, the radio, the TV, the newspaper, job to raise the concern or write to President Bush or express protest to Mr. Bill O'Reilly, just like in the incidents in 1999? The radio, did a good job. The TV, the media in general, did a good job in galvanizing people to protest against the action of Mr. Trump. So why not this time that the media do something about it to protest? Thank you.
Well, actually, there's the distinction between ethnic media and mainstream media. The ethnic media, the Vietnamese language media, of course, in an advocacy role because they, speak and represent the Vietnamese American, and so they galvanize the population, which is, only fair and right. I actually work for mainstream papers, and we don't write letters to the White House. We report when people write letters to the White House. When Vietnamese are going out to protest, we might report it if it's big enough. But we have to see it as an ongoing event in public forum before we can do the story. So the mainstream media can only react when there is a reaction from a Vietnamese community. But we don't just go to a Vietnamese community and say, are you insulted, are you not insulted, to get a story. We gotta have some kind of reaction, some kind of event that's going on before we can even start to do a story. And so it's up to the community that is insulted or is, at the end point of that story to do something about it before the, LA Times or Orange County Register might pay attention to that community. Ethnic media can do whatever it needs to do in order to galvanize that reaction. But mainstream media can only look into an event when that event is happening.
Bảo Anh xin góp ý kiến với cái câu hỏi của cô đó. Là actually in this case what you're talking about is watchdog journalism, when the media uses its resources to respond and to actually go out and interview, seek comment on some kind of controversy like you mentioned. And in this case, Bảo Anh thấy là chúng tôi mà làm việc cho ethnic media có lỗi. We are at fault for not responding sooner, and in many cases for having not responded at all. And I think the only excuse I would have is that we're in a frenzied election year and people are just going crazy with so much going on. And ở cộng đồng ngay ở Quận Cam đó thì chúng tôi chú ý rất là nhiều về những cái người mà ứng cử viên gốc Việt. So we have not placed as much attention on the national presidential race.
Có ai có câu hỏi gì nữa không? Anybody else have a question? Okay. And Sunny của nhà magazine.
First of all, I don't have a question, but I have some comment. I can read. I'm the publisher of Nhà magazine. In case you haven't picked up copies, it's out there. But in any case, it's very important that what Andrew and Yvonne and then Sadao speak, because to do media here is very hard, very hard. And we at the crossroad where a lot, 75% of us speak English. See how the whole conversation here we speak English, and look how many media out there, the language they use in English. Maybe 20%, 10%, 10% of Vietnamese media is in English, but 75% of us speak English, and maybe 100% we use English. So what we struggle with right here today is that the community is not used to language. That journalists really have to work for mainstream media to report the English content, and I think they don't understand us as much in terms. They don't understand, the community don't understand us, and don't get support as well. I mean, Andrew talked about, and Sarah talked about, we need to support our voice heard to see how we, what they know about us when we say, what is Vietnamese? What do they hear? Nail salon, pho, and war, and refugee. And so I think each of us try in the process of today, I hope that we can see that in order for us to build up dialogue between me and get connected with community, so a lot of misunderstanding is that we speak up as equal and more media try to close the gap, build a bridge, and expose our, we're more than just pho, we're more than just refugee, right? So new connection, and earlier today, one of the speakers, which is you, say, each of us have a role to play, have a responsibility to speak up of ourselves, and it's very hard. I tell you, we have this magazine where we spend, tons of resources to do it, and we sell for $2, just shipping costs. And I think about maybe 5% of you guys buy the magazine. So how are we mainstream? We said it's in Barcelona, by the way. How are they going to get to know us if, Vietnam, they die because they don't have enough support from advertising community and from subscribers. And the fate of, same thing with VAX and other publications, we continue to support, especially the publication that is in English, so that maybe someday the mainstream will understand us better as a community. We're more than just what we heard, and I really, Andrew and Bon and then Sarah, they are pioneers. We are doing something that never done before. So I hope you guys, whatever you guys do, go home and try to get the rally, watch the video or buy, support English content, so that someday that this one, our publication can get out, our media can get out to the mainstream, so that they get to know us. They get to see you more than, next time you introduce yourself, I'm so-and-so, Sunny Nguyen. They would say, wow, the Vietnamese people contribute so much to community. They've been here 30 years, they have so many scientists, so many professionals. It's not just, see what, the good interview that you have, just pho and nail salon and war. That's not enough. Hello, everyone.
Earlier when Andrew mentioned about the difficulties of getting people express their
even from young people. And I just want to touch on, I have a comment, and then you can touch on my comment. And I truly believe that. And in relation to earlier, we talked about the dilemma that we have when we feel that we need to do something about it. And that it has to do with politics. And a lot of things that we do and a lot of things that we say, we tend to, or other people tend to attach politics to that. How do we go about contribute or express our opinion without being labeled or having politics being attached to what we have to say?
I think that part of the power of being a member of the broadcast media, like you just saw with VPS, is that they can show an image and right away they can catch your attention. And with print, we have a little bit of a disadvantage. But the advantage that we have is that we can provide more depth in our reporting. There's nothing that you can watch on television or online that will give you all the details behind a story, especially when it's a controversy, that you can get by reading something in print. And so I think it's our responsibility. Phóng viên đó phải viết một cái bài bằng cái cách nào mà đi sâu vào chi tiết. We have to talk to all sides, and a lot of people are under the misimpression that there are two sides to a story, but actually there are not. There are. I have learned that there's always more than one side. There might be 5 sides, there might be 10, there might be 3, and there might be 2. So we have to be able to reassure the Vietnamese person that we're interviewing that we will try our very best to represent all views and build a relationship over time. And many Vietnamese people ask me, tôi có thể đọc cái bài đó trước khi mà chị đăng trên báo được không? And I get asked that, hundreds of times. And actually, our paper had a policy of not doing that, because that eventually somehow leads to censorship. And we hope that people outside the company read our text. The only exception is when we're writing about something that is may lead lawsuit, and in that case, we let our lawyer read it before it goes into print.
When you say your company, which does come to company?
Yeah, cả hai công ty.
Anh Angela hay là anh sẽ là có một
I'll take a shot. Go ahead. I think when you write a letter to the editor or when you speak up on radio, it is a political act. You can't help it. But your political point of view should be completely your own, and other people who label are trying to misrepresent what you want to say because they simplify what you want to say usually. I started out writing, and I still do from time to time, opinion editorial pages of different newspapers. And then I say something that is critical of human rights in Vietnam, when it has to do with Vietnam at all. Then my parents' friends call them up and say, yeah, he's good, he say the right things. But when I say something about positive about Vietnam, be it something about growing middle class or something, they say, not team go, and they say, tell him to watch out, he's team go. I would just go and report, but somehow all kind of labeling that I would hear from my parents who live in Vietnamese community in San Jose. But I cannot take those barometers as my direction because I trust my instinct, I trust my point of view, and I trust my moral point of view. So I can't, and to speak up is to be brave. And you need a lot of bravery in order to have a presence in America. Otherwise you will be ignored.
Actually, anh em cũng sung sướng tại vì bọn anh bị chửi nặng hơn.
To complement what they have said, I mean, prior to my working at VAX, I had done some worked with the media, written for the college paper, and some journals on the side for the degree I was going for. And I had never realized how timid the Vietnamese community would be in responding to anything. And I mean, when you hear about how timid they are to respond in writing, in print. I mean, how scared are they going to be to have a camera, a video camera in front of them? And you'd be surprised to see how many times we go out and do interviews where people don't want to have any comments on anything. In particular for VAX, we were just on the air for 2 weeks and we got faced with a political issue. Especially when our segment was more an expose on the fact that it was non-Vietnamese filmmakers doing a film about something very prominent in Vietnam. I think that was the focus more of our segment. We took a very neutral stance. We didn't make any pro-communist or anti-communist statements. I think the segment spoke for itself. But, you know, it was 2 weeks and we already got labeled politically, and action was taken straight out. I think the only solution really is for us as journalists, for us as the community, to be more comfortable about speaking out. The first way to do that is by supporting each other, as Sunny said earlier. We have to. If we don't, if I don't know that there's going to be another outlet out there supporting me for what I do, if I get into whatever situation, I'm not going to do it. It's just the culture of how we're brought by the way we're raised by our parents, where we take the path that is most secure. We study the things that are most secure. We don't take risks. It's not, our parents don't raise us to take risks. We're born to do things that are more secure, and that's been ingrained in our head. It's hard for us to take risks, so you have to know that there's a support group out there. The first way is to have the media support each other, and that's most important. The second responsibility is to try to put ourselves out there as much as possible. I think, especially for the broadcast medium, because we can get at least ourselves there visually. It's our job to do as much as we can to make sure the face of Vietnamese Americans, Asian Americans are out there in front of mainstream media. When that's the case, you feel a lot comfortable coming out and saying something, because you know you're not the only one, and you know you're not just going to be spotlighted, and then when you're looking around for support, there's nobody around you. So, again, it's very important for us. I mean, if we want other people to be brave, we have to do that first by supporting each other and pushing forward despite whatever obstacles, not being afraid. We have that freedom of expression here. We have the freedom to speak. So let's grab that by the horns and do what we need to do.
Thank you very much. I think the main point of what all of you guys said is that nếu mà mình muốn làm cái gì đó, that if you want to get anything done, you have to take a chance. And if we don't do that, I think we're kind of going back to where we came from in Vietnam, where there's no freedom of speech, and people are still afraid to say what they're thinking. And it would be very sad if that would be happening in our community. So all of us need to take a stance. Okay, I'm going to take one more question.
I'm sorry, I wasn't here for the video, but I looked at Man magazine once before, and I thought the content I can relate to it. I don't know if it's supposed to, like, he was saying how you were like trying to bridge the gap or communication or something between ethnic and the mass or general media. That I thought it was very Americanized. Just from my perspective, I can relate to the material, and I don't know. Are you trying to cater to like American, like Caucasian, Jewish audiences, or is it supposed to include like someone like me also? And that's just a question.
An answer?
Yeah.
Can I tell you a quick story? I can speak here. I'm out there almost every weekend. I just try to have someone buy the magazine. The reason we do this, part of our goal is that we have people who are lawyers, professionals, story here, inspiration story, pioneers. We have activists, we have filmmakers, we have journalists. We all feature here. That not only we don't try to part of bridging. We have a story about trồng cây kể. We have a story about nấu ăn, cooking. Part of it is passing the culture. We have áo dài fashion in here. So you cannot do one shot. You have to do slowly. So for us to not to inform the younger generation about what the older generation do, where's áo dài come from, what do they value as for planting trees. But we also inform them there are great Vietnamese examples that could inspire them, that they are paving way, go through a lot of hardship to get here. And in the process, we absorb the culture slowly. In the process, we inform the readers, because this magazine is so in Barnes & Noble, that each person read the magazine, they will see us in a different light. We don't expect to change the world overnight, but every magazine go out there, every person read the magazine or watch the video, read the story, they will get to know us better as a person. The coach, you cannot do one shot. You read one story that may inspire you, but it's time to do that.
It wasn't that. When I'm looking through the magazine, like in general, like the images and topics, whatever, like this one how I saw, it was like cross between policy and the magazine and everything or something. I thought it related.
Maybe you guys can take it offline and try to understand more about what is Anya.
May I speak on that issue just a little bit? Only because our TV show is very nice. I think our presentation style is very, very nice. I think our comments of being unable to relate to something speaks to the diversity within our own culture about how difficult it is to communicate to everybody. A good reason why we are as Americanized as we are, and I think why Nya Magazines is like the way they are, is just by standards of what mainstream media sets, either their broadcast media or their publication media. I know Sunny and myself, we don't want to just cater specifically and only to the Vietnamese community. In doing so, one, from a business standpoint, your numbers are so small, you're going to die out just like Vietnam. You've got to try to find a way to get non-Vietnamese Americans to find interest. The first and easiest way, outside of topic, is the visual presentation of it. And if you're saying visually, like the pictures look like Cosmo and things like that, that from a non-Vietnamese American looking at that, they will look at the magazine as something more mainstream that they perhaps will pick up, take a look at. Sponsors, corporate advertisers, that's what they want to do. They want to attract the most consumer-friendly audience. And that again is why our show is as Americanized as it is, because if it looks in language, looks not to the standards of the mainstream, we don't have the business support, and we definitely don't have in terms of numbers, the quantity of people supporting it, and then we end up dying. So it's our hope to bring in that group, to sustain ourselves, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Sunny, but I think by doing so, and we have that sustainability, that foundation, we can then further expand more about our culture, talk about who we are without fear of having to shut down next week. Type thing.
But I think nói thêm chút là, when I first started working at Người Việt, our philosophy of P.T. Barnum said the circus guy is to have a little bit of something for everybody. So a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Something really traditional, something that's cutting edge. And so we try to appeal to the diversity of young Vietnamese that there exists. And in terms of diversity, we're not just talking about the viewpoint. We're talking about their ages. We're talking about their religious backgrounds, their sexual orientation, and the economics. Poor, middle class, upper middle class, that sort of thing. So what we're hoping is that there isn't always every single page something that our readers will like, but there is something each time that they can relate to. So we appreciate you reading.
Okay, we have one last question.
I just have one comment. Khi mà tôi làm việc với những người lớn tuổi á, thì tôi bị chê là nhỏ quá. When I work with the younger people, I say I'm too old. Và tôi cứ switch language kiểu như vậy. So the first thing, be yourself. Vào năm 1976 thì có một số người bắt đầu đọc báo. Và những cái khó khăn họ nó cũng khủng khiếp như là những cái khó khăn của các bạn trong cái giai đoạn vào năm 1976. So don't be frustrated. Và từ đó thì xin các bạn cho các bạn ở trên một tràng pháo tay để You are the pioneer of our generation. Để mà có một direction mới từ media. Để hiểu được cái conflict của chúng ta ngày hôm nay với old generation thì tôi trong cái vai trò đầu giữa hai thế hệ thì mình thấy một số điều. Cái vai trò truyền thông của cái thế hệ đi trước nó là học cái định nghĩa cái vai trò truyền thông là như cái vai trò truyền thông chúng ta hiện nay. Cái tập thể tị nạn gọi là cộng sản lúc đó của người Việt Nam lúc đó, cái goal của media lúc đó là promote freedom. Cái goal của media lúc đó không phải là để report news mà để nói lên cái idea của những người tị nạn các bạn. Ngay từ đó, ngay cái chức năng của nó là take side already. So now you change the culture of thinking about media. So you will struggle, but you will success because that's the way it should be. phải take time. Cái thứ hai nữa đó là không riêng về media, tất cả mọi lĩnh vực anh em trẻ sinh hoạt we very frustrated and we very lonely somehow. And từ những cái đó dù cái reaction của mình very rebellious for you guys. Take time, kiểu mà lấn đất dần dần từ. Cái thứ ba đó in terms of support, don't stop at support by marketing. Tại sao một số trẻ ngày không đọc nhà magazine nữa? Because they don't care about Vietnamese culture. They don't care about their root. You got to make them care first, so they will go out and buy something to read more. Ngay chính tôi cũng vậy nữa. Lý do gì tôi phải đọc một cái tờ báo tiếng Anh mà do người Việt làm? Went out there, so many magazines in English, so many newspaper in English, be done by a big corporation. It's a lot better than your guy. Why I hate it? So you got to find a niche to serve certain people, and that to me the culture, the heritage is something. But you cannot do it all by yourself. You need help from every other organization to make people go back to their root, to make people have the need to find out what about Vietnamese culture, what's the áo dài, what kia. Còn những người khác em care, tôi có 5 đứa em gái được kêu nó mặc áo dài là no way. Thì làm sao em tìm một cái báo nhà magazine nó là áo dài, so make them learn that. So những cái đó là những góp ý và tôi biết rằng các bạn sẽ thành công, và tôi nghĩ rằng 10 năm sau, 20 năm sau, a new generation will look at you guys and say thanks, you just pass the first test.
Can I expect you to comment on that?
Nói gì anh có thể viết cố vấn Dear Abby for người Việt too.
Can I come last comment?
Okay, one last comment.
If look at here, there's big corporation that can do much better than what we can do.
On the reader.
I know, they can do much better. But how many of them write about you? Write about us? Time Magazine write about you? Newsweek? Oprah? No. This is uniquely ours. That is ours. That is by us. And believe me, we can be a good scientist as much as a journalist, that we can succeed, so we can write as well. That's my point, is that this is uniquely ours. That you can find this story in any other publication. Okay, and then the quality writing is as good. Look at that, they work for mainstream media. So that's
Would the panelists like to give some closing remarks?
I think that something I learned growing up is something I believe in, that when we meet somebody, a lot of times we don't remember who they are or what they stand for unless we see them in person. And without having that ability in terms of the media, you can't go out there and shake everybody's hands. So you try to get to know them and let them get to know you, the product that you put out. And so that's what we're trying to do with Người Việt High. Là một ấn bản tiếng Anh trong Người Việt ra mỗi tuần vào ngày thứ 5. So I invite you to take a look at it. And I have some copies here in case you want to see it. And I just hope that in the future we'll see more journalists trained in journalism and who have an all-consuming passion to do something for their community without publicly taking sides.
I got into journalism by accident, but I become quite opinionated in my opinions in journalism, and people tend to ask me whether or not I have betrayed my father, because my father and I are very opposite ends of the political spectrum oftentimes, in general in the Southeast Army. And my father actually has a very good answer, and I thought it's a very useful answer for me as well, is that he said that my son and I may disagree, but we both agree on one thing: we believe in democracy, and the principle of democracy is that you allow opposing ideas to exist, and that the basic idea of democracy is you allow free thinking, you allow expression, so that my son can disagree with me, but in fact we both agree on the same thing: we want democracy and free thinking for all people.
Growing up, I knew very little about the Vietnamese community, the Vietnamese culture, and in particular, I had no Vietnamese role models. All my role models were non-Asian, period. And you know, you ask yourself, well, why is that? You know, we can accomplish so much, we can do so much, and we know that because, I mean, if you spend the time to do the research, you'll see all the wonderful things that the Vietnamese community has done and has achieved. The fact that William Hung is the most popular Asian American in the United States is no one else's fault but our own. It's our job to put ourselves out in the mainstream. We can't wait for, and excuse me for using this term, but the white people to do it for us. They're not going to. Well, why should they? I mean, if we feel that there's something important we want to talk about, we should do it. Not only to them, but to our own community. You know, when I was growing up, I had no Vietnamese American role models either. We knew absolutely nothing about our culture, and why is that? Why are we so timid? Why are we so quiet to, you know, make light or you know, showcase the achievements of what we can accomplish and what we've done? And I think by the passion that we've seen in this room today, with respect to, you know, the questions of why this isn't happening, why that isn't happening, ask yourself, why isn't it happening? Then go do something about it. Everybody here should try to do something about it and support those who are trying to do that. You know, and you know, like Sunny said, when you get a chance, you know, pick up a copy of the magazine, get a subscription, pick up the Bicultural, you know, check that out. We have our booklets, we have a CD of our show outside on the tables. Just check it out. You know, at least you know, put yourselves in the position where when you ask, well, why is something being done? Your neighbor's not going to do it. You got to do it, and you know, take pride in that and know that you can make the difference. I think that's why I got involved with VAX, because I realized if I'm going to sit complaining, nothing's going to get done. So, you know, give it a shot. We've got nothing to lose if we don't try it. We're still the same place we're at now.
Thank you very much, Thibault. I'm an Angela and for sharing your story.